Working meeting order. Cory, county attorney.
Well, my budget's actually pretty simple. If you look at, I don't know if you're looking at the overall deal, but a lot of mine are not discretionary because they're salaries, overtime, et cetera. So what I addressed in the handout I gave you, this little sheet, is the discretionary ones, which is contingency 199 through contract services 398. And then I also had to give you two one-page memos. One is request for a deputy county attorney, and the second one is just advising you on some things going on with victim witness advocate. So I'll do that one first because that's real simple. So Marcy's Law was passed by the voters as a constitutional amendment. What it does is it lays out some requirements for victims of crime and how you correspond with them, communicate with them, etc. We were doing already most of that stuff, most offices were, but there are some additional notice things, and there's an expanded list of who is to be notified. The result is it's a lot more time and probably postage is my guess on what they need to do. Well, our victim advocate, Brooke Dolan, is 3/5 time funded by a grant from the Board of Crime Control as a victim advocate, and 2/5 time as a legal secretary in the office. She's applied for a grant to be fully funded, 100% of the time as a victim advocate. She's not going to know till June if she's been successful in that application. But if she is, what I would like to do then is retain that 2/5 time for a part-time legal secretary, because the legal secretary load won't go down in our office, but basically the victim advocate workload has gone up. That's the reality of it. So that would be no more than 16 hours a week. We have an office and we can use, we have a computer and a phone, so I don't see a lot of costs associated with that. It would just be a part-time person that would be able to do more of the legal secretary stuff, the calendaring, just a good discovery to defendants, just kind of all the things, managing files that goes into being a legal secretary. So, which right now we're, having Sherry on board for a few weeks now has been awesome. She's really organized, but the volume is pretty incredible, and I think give us another month, we're going to have a lot of that fixed. But she's just been remarking in terms of the volume in the office compared to when she used to be here is significant. So I certainly don't want to, with this good fortune of a benefit as a full-time victim advocate, lose that part-time legal secretary, because that's still very much needed.
This stuff here is what Brooke's doing and will keep doing, right?
So if she gets the full-time victim advocate, she would not be doing the legal secretary portion anymore. She would be doing, like I said, there's additional things that we have to do, noticing,
Right.
literally logging all communications with victims, those kinds of things that we need to do. So she's going to end up doing more of that stuff. So that legal secretary stuff that she does now would have to get picked up by somebody else if she gets the grant. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Depends whether she gets that grant or not.
Right. The second memo, or maybe the first, is also just, I tried to keep them simple, one page, and this is a request for a deputy county attorney. So we filed in 2015 47 felonies, and then in 2016 filed 53. That's not going down, and with the misdemeanors are just out of control this year. So bottom line is it's a two lawyer caseload. What I would recommend and ask for the commission is to hire a full-time deputy county attorney. Listed what the duties would be that I would look for there. We looked at these numbers last year and they're really the same in terms of salary ranges. And then if you don't fund a deputy county attorney, I would ask you to put some money aside so that I listed it in line item 352, professional fees and attorneys. I put $25,000 as a request there to be able to, from time to time, retain outside counsel. It would all be on civil stuff. I don't see ever retaining someone outside for criminal stuff. But so I put in, and I'll go over that next, the spreadsheet, but a request for $25,000 for legal professional retainer fees for outside lawyers, or if I get a deputy, then that would be zero. So. And now to the spreadsheet of 5 columns of numbers. So these are, like I said, just the discretionary line items. I didn't put all the other ones in, but for 2015, 2016 shows the actual amount spent from that line item. And the total of those discretionaries is $18,700. Then last year's, the appropriation for those line items was $18,000. I've spent just about $13,000 now through this fiscal year. There's a couple of items that we were able to turn off due to the way cases worked out, but I do have another several $1,000s that's going to be due this week for a mental eval of a defendant, and that I'll get that report today, and then we have that person will be testifying, and we have a hearing on Thursday, so I'll get the bill by the end of the week. So I might be coming back to you and asking you for some money for a mental evaluation. But if you look at these items, the very bottom one, contract services, we've spent $4,500 and we have $900. We're way over there. But so I'm going to ask for a budget amendment to balance that from the professional services line and the publicity subscriptions line. I'm not sure why that number is so high, the 3,000 there, or the operating supplies line. So what I'm requesting for next year, and the big jump is simply because of that additional $25,000 I'm asking for on the professional fees to retain outside counsel. If that's gone away, then the contingency is, or then the request for those discretionary items is just 20,000, and I bolded the ones on the last column where there's a difference between the amount requested or the amount requested with the deputy county attorney. And you guys see where I am on that last column? The reason for the bold, so one of them is publicity and subscriptions, and it went from a request of $1,200 to $2,000. The reason for that is that if I have a deputy county attorney, I have to fund their membership in the state bar and the county attorneys association. The travel, number 370. So I never do mileage when I travel for the county, but obviously I wouldn't ask the deputy to do that. But like, we have 2 conferences a year that we go to where we get all of our legal education credits, and we have to pay for those hotels. So that would be what that would be, and pay for the conference. So the training services would be the training conference, and the travel would be the travel costs. So, other than that, you look at it, it's less than $1,500 above what we spent the first year I was here. And go back, I don't know if we go back to, I didn't add up previous years, but it's, I think if we went back, we'd find that it's probably, we may have actually spent more in 2014, 2015. So, pretty simple, and the big one, of course, is the request for deputy county attorney. I know that one's, if you do that, that's a big chunk of money.
Mm-hmm. Have you checked any more on contract? Have you ever talked anywhere or checked what that would be? Or?
I haven't, because I didn't want to start down that road without an indication that might work there. But there are other counties that do it. I've had 2 different lawyers, without me asking, approach me about it. to see if that was ever something that they would do a contract, or if the county would ever do a contract to retain someone for outside. In particular, they both were approaching it from the standpoint of civil work, because that's what they do more of. One of them was a prior county attorney, so had done a lot of civil work for local governments. The other one is currently a city attorney for another city, not in our county, so has some experience there. So they both have approached me on that, and I guess the question would be how much. It all depends on how much time per week. You know what I mean? Or per month. That's really what would govern it. So I don't know what that would be, a ballpark of 10 hours a week, including coming to commission meetings. I don't know. And that would be just for civil and just for the county, not the city.
Do you think 25,000 would cover it?
No. Not if it was like they were retained for the entire year. Is that what you're suggesting?
Okay.
So what I was anticipating here to try and keep
We're
costs
just
down is
uncertain.
just if there were a couple of, from time to time, a backlog or a weird issue that, kind of like this Deep Creek thing where I just hire them one time. That was kind of what I was thinking. If you're saying that, I would say, I don't know, my guess would be it'd be about 40,000.
Yeah,
And
it'd
let's
still be less than
Than a
Deputy
full-
County
then a
Attorney.
full-time deputy, yeah, it would be.
Well, I guess you know what you need, and I was always before my idea was of contracting out, or somebody in that way.
I mean, I can, put some feelers out there and see what it would be. I guess the question is if you want, I guess we could explore all options, but how much time would you say? I mean, 'cause what they do is they budget it for how much time a month, right? If they're gonna spend, or a week, a lot of times get down to that. So if it's 5 hours a week, that's 20 hours a month. Or if it's more than that. And then you usually have to work into the contract that they would, if you want them at a county commission meeting, once a week or so, then you travel, put that into their travel so that they're not billing you $100 an hour just to drive down here or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd say probably explore that area, but as far as, if you're saying 5 hours a month or 20 hours a month, something like that, if you can get by with that amount, it looks to be like you'd be pushing yourself to. Yeah, I think they'd need more than that, probably.
Actual work on like research and things like that on civil issues, you could maybe say 5 billable hours a week. I think that's not too little. But the question is then if you wanted to be at a county commission meeting, then that's their time also, so you have to figure that out.
Now, on this research, could they do a lot of that from home?
Yeah,
or-
they'll do that at their office, wherever their office
Oh,
is.
okay.
So you say you don't have to pay for that travel.
Which would work a lot better for your budget that way. Any comments, suggestions?
So if this guy's gonna be the primary city attorney, does the city pay for that then?
So if we're gonna have that discussion, then I gotta have that discussion with the city. And there's kind of one thing that's important about it. We've only had to do it once formally. We had one time when I was advising both the county and the city, and they were in a conflict. So I wrote a conflict memo advising them both of what it was, and they both had to sign it for me to continue to represent them, and they did. So it's unlikely that's going to happen often, but it's likely it will happen at some point in the future. So if you have two different lawyers, that gives you the ability to separate and give them independent advice. But as far as doing the doing the prosecution, the misdemeanors, that's easy. I would just go to them and authorize them as a deputy city attorney to do it. If it's someone who's full-time, then my goal would be that they become basically the full-time city, or at least the lead city attorney, but I have to obviously get their approval on that.
Now, if you had a full-time one, they work with you on criminal cases too then, right?
Yeah, so a lot of times what happens, I mean, the way this happens is you hire someone that's young and just out of school or something like that, and so, they do all those misdemeanor cases, and trials are the same, they're just less formal, and so as that goes, and when we have felony trials, you bring them in as second chair, you call it, or the prep and witnesses, all that stuff, and they get a lot more of that district court experience, and then you can work them in from time to time, depending on the case. There were more items on here I took off just to simplify it.
What was your figure for, you figured it'd be for a full-time deputy? Oh, no, okay, I see.
Yeah, so what you've got to add on though is you've got to add on all these other benefits. So our rule of thumb that we looked at last year was that if it was at 70,000, that the cost was actually 90,000.
So,
So are we at a backlog on cases right now, or where are we at with?
I've done more civil this year than previous years, so I'm a little behind. I've got 8 felonies that are ready to file. I'm filing at least 3 of them this week. And then I have the other thing that really hit us was misdemeanors. We had, gosh, I bet we broke the record for misdemeanors this year. So every one of those, I mean, you're running those through. So
when you say this year, you're talking from January to
no,
now, or you're talking from July?
I'd say from last fall
From last fall,
on,
okay.
yeah. Really this fiscal year. So since July, but we really saw it in the fall and then through the winter. The thing is, you can control some of that tempo with a felony because you have a little more choice of when you file it. And some of these are long investigations, so you keep working on that before it's ready. And some of you got to file right away, depending on what it is.
So I have a couple of questions for you and a couple of comments just from the past couple of years and information we've gotten from doing this a couple of times. First off, there's never enough money, be it for law enforcement, be it for county attorney, be it for district court, whatever. It is what it is. And so my first question is, where's it going to come from? And that's something we'll have to figure out. But we took a lot of mills from general fund last year and gave them to law enforcement. The problem is we did not give enough reserves to the general fund. In my opinion, we have got to concentrate on reserves this year. For Mike's benefit, one of the things that you will find, Mike, as you go to conferences and meet the other commissioners and get to know them, that every year it's a fight with commissioners and those who want money, county attorneys and sheriffs, and you know this too, Corey. We're not alone. This is across the board. So just looking at the numbers, last year we had a conversation, as you know, with Brian Hopkins about a contract. Assistant attorney for you. It was 40,000. So it concerns me that your budget shows just 25. I think that since we have the potential contract that Brian and Michelle were going to work on, we should be sticking with the 40 so that we don't get into the budget and then get addressed with, well, there's a lot more work that they need to do. I need more money when we already don't have enough to answer everybody's wants on the budget. So I'd like to see that reflected a little bit more accurately with kind of the facts we have on the ground. The other thing is I do think that the 55 to 70,000, that should reflect the RAP rate. for that. And we'll have to have an answer by the time we have to have that paperwork done, Debbie, for the health insurance levy. If we come in after that, we're gonna have to have some kind of a plan so that anybody who hires a full-time or a 30-hour or more employee after that deadline, how are we gonna cover their health insurance? As you guys both know, we had 5 people brought on this past year, and that's what's put us behind in health insurance. That's something we need to have a discussion on how to address. So those are my, one other question. We talked about Kelsey, who's currently a 32-hour per week employee. We're paying her the full healthcare benefit. Did you talk to her about potentially being that secretary that you were looking for?
No, I didn't. I thought that would be premature to approach her because I wanted to first find out if that, number one, depends on if Brooke gets the grant. Number two, depends on if the commission wants to go in that direction. And that would add an additional 8 hours of legal secretary, but I would be losing 16 hours of legal secretary equivalent per week. So it's an idea. I just thought it was premature to talk to her about it.
Okay, so that's still on the table though as an option, I would hope, especially with, you've got a lot of requests here. I show a 42% increase. In your budget at this point, we don't have a full budget, like you said, it's just the basics. This does not include the request for the county attorney. So
How
we'll
is
have
this
to-
a 42% increase?
And what I did is I just took the increase, and I just did it very quickly and divided by the total.
But what increase are you looking at? Which item? Which line?
25,000 for starters for the professional, and I didn't do 40, I just did the 25.
Okay.
So it's a big jump. And again, this was just done very quickly. I certainly could have hit the wrong button. So maybe it's not quite 42%, but we're gonna have to look at the numbers. But those are my questions. I think we need to stick with the facts that we have and move forward from there.
So the one we discussed last year, the 40,000, was if you do what Franklin has asked about, which is you actually retain somebody for the whole year, and they have a certain amount of work every month that they're doing, every week, and that one was not the 25,000 year. The 25,000 was if I don't retain somebody, like on an ongoing basis, but rather just have some funds available in case from time to time we need to retain somebody for just on a project by project basis. I was trying to find a way to, thinking if there's no appetite for a deputy county attorney, how do we decrease that ask to the lowest level, but still be responsive to I guess civil issues that generally come at times when the cupboard is bare but the plate is full.
So did you derive at that number by running numbers, estimates, workload? Because of that, if that's the case, we need to hear it.
It was just going over the previous years and some specific anticipating 3 to 4 times a year when there was something that was either due to the nature of that issue or due to the workload at that time, that it would be better served to retain somebody for that particular project. So just based on the last 2.5 years that I've been here.
And
I think the 40,000 is a preferable option, and I'm all for it. But I didn't know your guys' appetite on looking at that.
Mike, one thing for you is, one of the things that we looked at last year, and again, it just came down to the money, the $40,000 civil attorney would actually be housed under the commission and would just be civil, and that would free up Corey for just criminal. And one of the arguments for that was that when you're gone, we can't be in a position of, I can't give you an answer on this, I gotta wait for Corey to come back. Your trips with the National Guard, and again, I honor your service and I thank you for your service, but it is a hardship on the county financially, and then also when things have to stop, until you get back, and then the extra week it takes for you to catch up with all the criminal stuff that's front burner. We end up waiting for weeks to get answers. If there were somebody on retainer under the commission, then they would be answering to us, and we would get answers right away versus waiting. So that was just the reason behind the thinking, and that was from Mako advice on that. So it would be something to think about, and perhaps the 25,000 would be a good place to start with that. You know, that was kind of a shot in the dark too from Brian, the 40,000 with his proposal. So, I don't know what the best answer is, just trying to share some history, Mike, since you weren't here, just to give you as much information to put in your back pocket for moving forward.
I guess I would respond to that though, that whoever we would hire would work under my direction. And even if I'm gone, then certainly they can communicate and give all that information to the county. It's not like the commission, it's not like I would be at this where I'm micromanaging this person. The reason for this is because I don't have time to do all these issues. So basically we're gonna confer from time to time, but they would be fully empowered to communicate directly with you and give you legal opinions on all that stuff. But that outside person does not house directly under the commission. All outside counsel is under me. That's just the way it is by law, and that's not what Mako's advice was. Mako's advice was what I just said.
No,
it
it
was
wasn't.
fine. Let's get Brian Hopkins on the phone. We went through this in detail.
Yeah.
That's
and
the way. No, I'm sorry. That's the way it is.
it's no need to apologize, Corey.
No, I'm not apologizing. I'm clarifying.
And what I would do is maybe ask Mike to go ahead and give a call yourself, ask this question of our folks at Mako, and you know, if it's under your office, that's fine with me. I'm not sure that it's. I do worry about things getting stalled when you're gone. They already have been. To give you more staff and then have the stall continue, it's a hardship on the county. There's just no other word.
That's a false premise. There wouldn't be a stall. That's what I just communicated to you. There would
There
not be a
has been
stall.
already, and so that's where my worry comes from, and that's where our advice probably came from
Because
as
we didn't
well.
have an attorney available when I was gone.
Right, but getting documents, that kind of thing that doesn't necessarily require an attorney, those things were also stalled. So if that were to happen, we would have to have perhaps an MOU, perhaps just an open communication that shares some, where we can have a place to share the worries and address those worries in a way that is concrete. Then maybe that would be my request, if we are able to find the money and move forward with these requests.
Okay. I'm not sure what that means, but I mean, this is the beginning of a dialogue, so.
So the question is if the commission funds the lawyer, then the lawyer's answers only to the commission, not, but you're saying the lawyer answers to you.
I'm saying I'm the legal representative for the county. All attorneys, whether they're through Mako or through a deputy or through a retained deputy, they are still working under my direction. But you are the client, particularly for a civil issue. Law says the county commission is the client. So on all civil issues, whether I'm doing it or another lawyer's doing it, we advise the client, and the client's requests and decisions are what govern. We advise on risk, etc. So, and honestly, I think this is a point that's unnecessary for us to even be disagreeing about. But all outside counsel, or inside counsel for that matter, work under my direction, but they work for the best interest of the client, who would be you. So if I'm gone on a National Guard trip, you don't have to wait around and not call the person until I'm back. And even when I was in Romania last year, I talked at least 10 times to law enforcement officers on cases that were ongoing. So You know, it's pretty unlikely that there's gonna be barriers to where I'm completely, in some kind of a communication blackout.
And this model, both models have been done with different commissions, Mike. And I'll see if I can get you some other counties that you can talk to, and just so you have all the facts before making a decision to move forward. And it very well could be the best way to do it for us is either direction, I don't know. But I think it's worth looking into, if we can find the money. And for me, that's the big thing right now, is that if.
I think we get the most buck for the bang through the contract service.
Okay.
So, because there'll be 12, 15, close to 20,000 of benefits otherwise, that this
Right.
way you could use for,
Well, and I agree, you're gonna, over the course of the year, it's gonna be predictable and you're gonna get more for your money. I wasn't sure that you wanna go down that road. So if you want, I can do some exploring now. Would you want me to go to the point of actually even asking for attorneys to put in a bid, or telling them, of course, there's no commitment, it's all contingent on what the budget does?
well, I would think it'd be good. That way you would have a little more of a definite idea on them, and they would also have more of an idea at this point. Are these two pretty interesting, do you think, that one of them would probably go?
I'll have to check,
Yeah.
but you know, there may be other people out there too.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah, okay.
so it might be 3 or 4 people that put in a proposal.
I would think it's worth exploring. How does everybody else feel, or any comments, or?
So I guess my question was with this, if Brooke goes to the full-time here, is that gonna translate into more time for your legal secretary? If you have your legal secretary in for 16 hours, is there gonna be any time that Brooke has elapsed time to do some of that legal secretary work, and how would that work?
It's a good question. I mean, there are some of the things that she does that are, that she would do under either scenario, like trial prep with me and bringing victims in and witnesses for interviews. That's still part of the victim witness advocate role. So she would do that anyway. That's not gonna go away. The big thing that's a difference is file management, calendaring, and sending things to defense, and working with law enforcement on investigations. Some of that will change, but it's not like there's these walls between us, because we all work on the things together. In the same meeting, you may come out of it with call this law enforcement officer and this witness, and also contact this victim. So yeah, there aren't like firm walls. I don't know if that's a good.
So is this Marcy's Law, is that gonna require those extra 16 hours? The extra 2/5, is she gonna pick that up because of Marcy's Law then?
Again, it kind of feasts or famine. There's times when it's more than you can handle, and then there's times when you get a breather. But what it does is also requires us to implement systems of how we are like literally documenting contact with victims. We talk to victims all the time, but we don't document it. So that's something that we have to do. So there's some of that stuff that Brooke's gonna have to do that's new to what her job is. But there's I'm sure there's times when she's gonna be able to help out in the office without it necessarily being a victim witness advocate role. It's just a member of the office.
So we talked about, is Kelsey qualified to do this legal secretary work, or
Yeah, I think
she
so,
can get
yeah.
schooling to do that, or?
I think she is. I mean, based on the work she's done in the clerk of court's office.
would she have another day that Kirk might not need her, that we could just switch her to 3 days with Kirk and 2 days with you?
I'd have to ask him. I wouldn't be able to speak for him on that, but there's a possibility. I get where you're going, and there may be where we sit down with the whole team and we figure out how to make it work with just 8 more hours rather than 16 more hours. Legal secretary. That's kind of what you're wondering, is how to hold that pie. And of course, I don't know if I haven't asked. Like I said, I haven't talked to her. I thought it would be premature, so I haven't talked to her to see if she's looking for another day of work a week or not. So.
Okay.
But I think all this these are the ingredients of a solution.
So the other deal, I guess, is that we got the discussion of 40,000 for a full-time civil attorney. You've got 25,000 here for professional fee attorney. Is that $15,000 difference? Would that be enough money to cover the civil stuff from the commission? If you gave him if he budgeted the 40, use 25 of it for your professional fee attorney, and then use the other 15 for the civil matters of the commission, would that be enough to cover both of those areas or not, or would they be included?
Well, I was thinking of those as the same thing. So
It's the same thing.
yeah, but so a way to possibly save that money is if that 8 hours. So we're talking 16 hours of a legal secretary. If 8 hours goes to a Kelsey, and then 8 hours use that money to help fund that contract attorney. But they're not two different entities. I mean, really, what I'm looking for, if it's not a full-time deputy, if it's a contract part-time person, the goal is that they're fully committed to civil stuff or emergencies if I'm gone. But
So you think that the 25,000 would do it though?
no, I was not using the 25,000 to represent the contract like you
No,
commissioners have talked
but
about.
to fill in the civil work that you think needs to be, that's kind of not getting done at this point. You had stated when you put this together that you thought 25,000 for contracting would do it. Is that changing?
What I was communicating that as is, if the answer is no, minimize your request as much as possible. I was saying with 25,000, what I would anticipate is that gives me the ability of, depending on the issue, several times a year, where if it's a unique issue or we're going into a trial or something, that I can retain somebody for a particular issue. But it would basically be a way to mitigate the current situation we're in, which is it's a workload for 2 lawyers and there's 1 lawyer. It's really the bottom line. So it's a way to mitigate it, but it's less ideal than the other 2 options we've discussed here.
One of the comments that came out last year when you put this request to us for the deputy attorney, a lot of people mentioned, it was just 6 years ago that John Flynn was 50% of full-time. This is a big jump from just 6 years ago of being literally half time to needing 2 county attorneys. And the biggest growth for the county was between 2000 and 2010. That was where we grew by 26%. So there maybe needs to be some public education around this as well, if we are going to move forward with this, because that it's 50% to 200% over a span of 6 years is a big jump.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think that's public outreach is absolutely important. I've talked to a lot of people who were here through all of John's years, including Sherry, and she said, well, he requested a deputy all the time, like literally year after year, and even when he became full-time, had told the commission at that time that this one person, it still wasn't a one-person office due to the workload then. I can just tell you that the felony cases have gone up since then. As far as all the other cases, I haven't run the numbers well enough to know. I think that's ebbed and flowed depending on how active the highway patrol has been. and they're not active right now, but some of our deputies, newer deputies, have really increased their level of activity to cover what a lot of the high patrol officers did. But again, my guess is if you were to graph it, civil case or misdemeanors would look like that over the years, even depending on the time of year. And then as far as everything else that goes on, I agree. The problem is I'm not John Flynn, and I'm never going to be John Flynn. So I think that's a certain amount of what we're dealing with here. I guess I would also say that with the change in the public defender system, I think the complexity of the investigations and the kind of the expectations of what happens in a trial are significant. I know every law enforcement officer in our department, in terms of the evidence expectations, in terms of the follow-up investigations and all that, we're in a whole different world from where we were 6 or 10 years ago.
So is there a way that we can fund this $25,000 for this attorney, and also fund this other $15,000 towards the commission, but make that $15,000 floating, so if we have to take it to your department, not necessarily your department, but it's not, the commission isn't using it, but you need it for the other part of it. Is there a way that we can fund that as basically as a floater, and then track how much money the commission is actually spending, or how much time the commissioner is actually requiring?
Do you anticipate a different person, or like if we retain somebody, do you anticipate it's the same lawyer or a different lawyer?
I think that we would try to use the same person, because they're either going to be going on civil or the other one, and so you want to keep the same person.
Yeah. Well,
Are we able to float that amount to both departments, or to bill it to one department or the other, or?
that's probably more a question for Debbie than for me in terms of how the actual money would go. I guess what I'm saying though is that number one, the person in terms of this scenario, we talked about the 40,000 contract. My expectation of that person is that they are working almost exclusively for the commission working for me, but for the commission on civil issues. So, there may be an odd exception where it's something that you don't see, and that would be, again, a board or whether it's like the weed or the museum, we got some work to do on the museum board. It would still be a civil thing for the county government, but the vast majority of that's gonna be stuff you request, working on stuff for the commission, giving back to the commission. I'm just saying you shouldn't separate those, and if you separate those and you have a portion of it they're working for the commission, a portion of it they're working for me, it's gonna be a mess. It's gonna be a confusing mess, and it's also gonna be, I honestly think it's contrary to statute. I don't know, I don't think you can do it. I don't think the arrangement's gonna work, because part of that is, let's say we get into the middle of it, and I find that they're doing substandard work, and I say, well, this person isn't following the basic requirements of a particular case or legal reasoning, whatever, and I want to get rid of them, and they're going, no, I'm working for the commission on this. It would be messy, and so ultimately, I'm the legal advisor to the county, and even you take Lewis and Clark County, chief deputy for civil is a guy named Paul Stahl there. And he's the guy the commission goes to all the time. And they don't go through Leo Gallagher. And but if something happens and there's a conflict, he works for Leo, and Leo can tell him fix this or don't fix this. He doesn't work under. He works under the direction of Leo, but the client is the county commission. I don't know if that's making any sense. Bottom line is, I don't want to be cut out of the loop of that person's work.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that I I want this 15,000 to be part of the, the 25,000 comes out of your budget. The 15,000 would be a reflection on the commissioner's budget,
Okay.
but he's still under your direction.
Yeah, he or she, yeah, yeah. Okay, I understand. Well, and I guess if there's a way to do that, and I'm looking at Debbie on that one, if there's a way to do that, then that makes sense, that's fine.
We do that all the time for people, like Health Clinic, they've got 4 or 5 different funds. They just split them up based on the percent of time they spend working for each of those funds and functions.
And I'm not saying necessarily limit this 15, but what I'm trying to say is to track what the commission is actually spending on that. I mean, if
I
that's
see.
something that has to, and even if the commission's budget has to pay that money to legal, it's the same as budgeting it to you, isn't it, is it not? But I just wanna know that if we're gonna spend 15,000, is that covering what the commission is requiring to be done? Or is the cost of what the commission is requiring him to do, is it less than that? So we can say, well, okay, so next year we only have to give 10,000 to the lawyer, and then this becomes 30 for the dedicated to the attorney's office for what they do.
Okay.
And not necessarily being spent by the commission on the commission.
With that line of thinking, Mike, would you be looking for every department to have perhaps a line item for their legal issues? Weed is involved with non-compliance right now. Should some of that be coming out of the weed department?
Well, my
Decrypt
impression
would be
when we started the
DES.
budget process was that we were going to bill departments, we're gonna bill them for energy, we're gonna bill them for their health, and we're gonna separate all that out to each department instead of just saying a mass payment that, yeah, you have this money in your budget, but you remember you have to pay utilities out of this too. My impression was that we were gonna take all of those and put them into those departments so that we're not, so that there's a reflection of what's actually coming out of the general fund to what we're covering for weed and mosquitoes or whatever, you know, like we were gonna have a power bill for each one of them for the month, for their percentage.
We're not able to do that this year because it takes too much time to build it, so that's something that we've decided to wait until next year to implement. But on the same hand, general fund doesn't pay for weed. So if you're looking at some of, all the departments, would your plan be then to start this year with a line item for this? And put that on there, all the departments, be they in general fund or not?
Well, I
It-
thought
it
that
could
that's
be
what we
really
were gonna try to
complicated.
do, was make all those departments figure that cost.
We are, but we can't do it this year because we didn't have enough time to build it. And we talked about this a couple months ago. For Debbie to put that together is incredibly onerous. It's a great idea, we've got Bob who's willing to help us. But to get it done for this year, there simply was not enough time.
Okay.
So she's going to be working on this next year so that we have it for the next budget season.
Okay.
You know, it's
Um,
easy to do that if you're, I mean, lawyers are, we're always billing by client, by subject, by whatever. Very easy for them to track their hours by particular issue, by department, and they can give you a monthly report on that.
And then we could use that to build it for next year. That would really
Yeah, see,
help us
that's
out.
basically what I'm
Yeah.
after, I wanna know just exactly what, if we're gonna fund $15,000, or do we require 15,000? Do we require more, do we require less? So I just wanna know what the commission, if we're gonna give you 40 and say that we wanna retain ourselves at 15, can we track that enough to know just exactly where we're going with it?
I see, that makes sense.
We can, whether it's under the county attorney budget or commission or where have you.
Yeah,
So that's something that our claims, when you sign the claims, you see that it comes as a particular object code and a
yeah,
fund. You can actually do a report based
Okay.
off of that information and have just the contract attorney and what everything was paid for and out of what funds.
okay, okay.
So another question for you, Corey, with this proposal, could you put together what percentage you would think would come from the city? You say here that it would be the primary city attorney to advise the city council on civil issues, and then number 2, city misdemeanor prosecutions. So what percentage would that be roughly? Could you
Okay.
get that to us for our budgeting?
And this is under the full-time employee scenario.
Okay, so we'd need it under that scenario as well as the contract, as well as the $25,000 as needed.
On those, I was expecting 0 on the city.
Okay, so, okay, so this is just the county attorney, and that contract would not be used for any, well, it would be used for city services, but you wouldn't be charging, which is fine. The city doesn't have nearly the resources we do. So I personally, just
Yeah.
putting it out there, would be happy to pay.
Yeah, so I just want to be
25 or
clear,
40.
that list is only if we were dealing with a full-time deputy county attorney employee.
Okay.
This list on working on city stuff.
This is the 55 to 70.
Right, and that would still require the city's approval to do that. But if we're talking about the part-time contract, I don't anticipate doing, that would be any city
Yeah.
stuff at all.
Okay, well. Other comments? If you get that information, Corey, and
Okay,
we're kind of running behind, we're gonna get onto our caucus here pretty soon, so. that,
all right.
You know, you would look for there,
I
stuff
do.
like that, okay?
The question I would ask is, do you expect, would you want that person to come to county commission meeting, and how often? Because obviously, I would say no more than once a week, and try to just do them for a couple hours so you're not, on the clock for all that, but there's a lot of things that I think in person probably are the best plan, but there's also maybe ways to save money by, so, I don't know if you wanna save 2 times a month or 3 times a month, come to a county commission meeting,
Okay.
work that into the budget.
I would want an MOU on that too, just because we've had an awful lot of using you as a crutch and putting you, or you entering into a fourth commissioner position. That is not good for the commission, it's not good for the county, and it's not good financially. So I would want some kind of discussion, open, honest discussion
Okay.
on that.
Alright, that one's done?
Yeah, let's,
Okay.
Go on to the talk, you're staying here for the caucus, aren't you?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm just sitting back here.